So I have something slightly different to share today, and that's a neat little approach to wave folding using four-quadrant multipliers. This is something that I wasn't really familiar with until I started playing around with it recently. My understanding of wave folders traditionally is that you're using comparators to create fold-over points and building up your folds in a wave that way. But there's a whole other approach to this by taking your input and multiplying it by itself. You can create these multiplications of your waveform, and these will fold in on themselves using a little bit of fancy math. I will admit I don't fully understand the math here, but the motivating structure here are something called Chebyshev polynomials, and there's a whole space of these functions that are you're able to create certain harmonics through this sort of wave folding with them. I don't know a lot about them, and my guess is that most people who are coming to see this probably don't know a lot about them either. And so I just want to point at them and say, hey, look at this cool thing. This is a little bit weird. So let me walk through what's going on here exactly, because you'll see I have a VCO up here in VCVRAC. I have this VCO. It's running into a four-quadrant multiplier that is taking that waveform times that waveform plus an offset, or minus an offset in this case. So we have input times input minus 1. We take the result of that, pass that in as A2 here, multiply it by that same input again, and then we take that whole bundle out, we pass it to the second, A times B plus C, and we do the exact same thing. Our first two-parter times itself minus 1 times itself again, passed out to the third one here. And each of those 3 two-step stages creates some folds in our wave that we see along the way. And these folds fold back on themselves with each stage really, really nicely. It's really cool. Here, let me show it in action. I'm going to take off the LFO, so we're just hearing the constant output. I'm going to bring the gain down so we have just a nice little sine starting to square off. Here it is. As we bring up the gain, looking at the final stage here, we'll see the wave fold over on itself at a couple of different points. There it is at the edges, then it folds back at the middle, at the top, all the way down, and then back to the middle, all the way up. And so we get this nice alternating outside and inside folding on the waveform. One of the really interesting things about having it set up like this, where we've patched our own wave folder, is that we can take each of these points along the wave folder and intervene in that spot, change the character of the wave folder a little bit. So let me open this up. And I'll show you this final offset I'm not currently using. You can see it's set to 0 on each stage, but there's some interesting things to be done with them. The last one, not so interesting, admittedly. As you might expect, adding an offset to the final output of the wave simply shifts the wave. But when we get to some of our interior stages here, there's some neat timbral shaping that can be done. And of course, the wave folder also responds nicely to the offset before any of its stages. So a couple of really neat folding opportunities that we have when we break up a wave folder using this multiplication setup like this. The last thing that I want to show here is using a mixer to add a little bit of feedback into the wave folder path. Now, I think that this behaves a little bit differently in VCV Rack. Feedback often does, unfortunately, than it would in a hardware setup. But it's still cool. We get some, in this setup, we get to noise really, really fast, some really wild noise. But I think that the small amounts that I'm going to show first get to some of the different character of feedback that we can get into this. So there's our wave as we had it before. Now let's add a little bit of feedback. We can get this really nice sort of buzzy high harmonics feedback on the wave folder here. And that can very quickly in VCV Rack get pushed into some real absolute chaos and noise. If you like chaos and noise, here's a little treat for you. If you aren't such a big fan of noise, taking the feedback path from earlier stages in the wave folder will actually produce different emphasis on harmonics, which I think is really cool. So here from the output at the bottom, we still start to break up pretty quickly, but you can hear some of the differences that we get in that feedback character here. Just some neat stuff to play with. I think that this is more of a beginning point than an ending point for the explorations that could be done here. So I hope that you enjoyed this little curiosity. It's something new to me, and I think it might be new to a lot of you as well. So enjoy. Something fun, strange, a little bit out there. But the neat little wave folding thing.